we can look at a particular bank, all right. It's obvious. They're very, very dependent on IT, because without IT, they cannot survive. Because they have to deal with electronic funds transfers, the networks, and providing online services to the customer. So it's very critical, and hence, IT security audit normally will have to focus on issues that matters most to the bank. And this would include things like a business continuity plan, a disaster recovery, and the issue of how the audit will reduce the risk of fraudulent transactions in the bank. The auditor will have to engage with the business people to facilitate, because they are the right people who knows the business better than the auditor. And therefore, we have things like control self-assessment. They have to look at what does the organization depend on IT for. Is it dependent on IT for the business survival, like in the banking industry? Or is it dependent on IT for its operational efficiency? Or is it dependent on IT for the effectiveness of certain programs? Or is it dependent on IT to ensure compliance with the regulations? What is the role of IT in the organization? And hence they can see the importance of IT in that context, and we have addressed the risk accordingly. It boils down to the organization's risk appetite and what they see as the acceptable level of risk and what they can tolerate, because audit has a cost to it, and the effectiveness of the audit depends also on the quality of the audit that's being carried out. I've known of certain banks which says that every year we have to do a penetration test on a web-based system because of the danger of hacking that's prevalent today. And they said that should be the more frequent. I think the first thing is the question of definition of what is IT audit. Basically, IT audit is an audit of the information systems, infrastructure, and related processes to audit. By itself, it is not an audit in the end in itself, but it's usually conducted in support or in connection with other types of audit. For instance, like financial statements audit. So they do perform IT audit because they need to ensure the reliability of information that's generated from the accounting system that is used to produce the financial statements. IT audit can also be done in support of what we call a performance audit, where we look at the efficiency and effectiveness of the business operations. Here, the focus of IT audit is on the utilization of the assets, all right, in terms of how these assets have been used, the resources have been deployed to achieve the business goals and programs. Now, IT audit, the starting point is not the IT audit itself, but what is the business risk that you need to address. So in the IT audit planning, we will have to list down what matters most to the organization, and if you carry the IT security audit accordingly, aligned to it, it can affect the frequency of the organization. In the risk-based audit plan, we actually identify what are the critical systems to be audited and the frequency of it. The frequency will be detected by a particular methodology, which I will not able to describe, but basically that methodology will help you to come up with the recommended audit frequency to audit a particular system. So one system has to be audited every year, another system once in 2 years, yet another system will be done on once in 3 years. That's what we mean by cyclical, and it gets rotated. Actually has a mandate from the board to look at issues of risk, governance, and control. And in the area of IT, they may not be conversant with technological issues because they are basically non-IT people, business people. Now, the IT auditor will definitely go and address technical issues regarding the IT environment. But when it comes to certain findings, how do they communicate and interact with the audit committee, because the audit committee needs to understand the issues not from the IT perspective, but from the business perspective. How does it affect the business? If you say there is a technological issue that needs to be addressed, a particular problem with a particular system or hardware, they would like to know what's the impact on the business. And that's where the interaction comes in. It's a very important skill because the business people look at IT issues not from the technical angle, but from the business perspective.